The bar more so was humming tonight. Taylor sat at the counter, a glass of Carbero in her hand. The raw spirit of familiar burned down her throat. But another kind of heat was pressing against her back, prickly and intense. The usual low thrum of immortal energy was different, laced with a sharp, hostile tension she hadn't felt in a long time. She took a slow sip, letting the liquor steady her nerves, before turning on her stool to scan the room. Her eyes swept past the usual mix of fae, sorcerers, and other long-lived beings until they landed on the source of the heat. In the back right corner, 3 figures stood cloistered together, vampires. Their eyes glowed like brimstone embers, all of them fixed directly on her. The noise in the bar was a cacophony tonight, a wall of sound that drowned out her usually sharp hearing. She couldn't pick up their words, only the sight of their lips moving in hushed, urgent whispers. Even without hearing them, she could tell they were from 2 different factions. What were they doing here? Morso was neutral ground, open to all immortals, but vampires considered it beneath them. They almost never showed up, preferring their own gilded, blood-soaked establishments. Their presence alone was a bad omen. The sheer force of their hatred was a palpable thing, a wave of malice washing over her. Her first thought was a weary sigh. "Crap," she muttered to herself. "Looks like I'm going to have to put them down tonight." But she immediately pushed the thought away. Morso had one unbreakable rule: no fighting, period. Breaking that rule meant facing the bar's proprietor, a being far older and more powerful than anyone present. Besides, fighting wasn't her mission. She was in the city of Hofsir on official business for the Pax. Her orders were simple: observe, gather information, and report back. She was a scout, a spy, not an enforcer. Engaging with vampires and drawing attention to herself was the last thing she was supposed to do. She was meant to be a ghost, a shadow in the crowd, learning what she could about the recent theft of the immortal contract, the ancient treaty that kept their world from descending into all-out war. Letting out a slow breath, Taylor turned back to her drink. This was a complication she didn't need. The vampires' presence, their open hostility, it was a direct challenge. Were they here for her specifically? Or was their appearance connected to the stolen contract? She needed answers, but a bar brawl wasn't the way to get them. Just as she was calculating her next move, the heavy oak door of the bar creaked open. A new figure stepped inside, cloaked in shadows and a scent that cut through the stale air and alcohol. Taylor froze. She'd never seen this man before, but the scent, she knew that scent. It was Wolf, but it was tainted different, older. She took a subtle sniff, her senses confirming her suspicion. It was him. The exile. Thrown out of his pack years ago for crimes so heinous they were only spoken about in hushed warnings to unruly pups. The stories said he'd broken the most sacred laws of their kind. What was he doing here in Hofsir, of all places, and why now? His return, coinciding with the theft of the immortal contract, couldn't be a coincidence. Suddenly, the room felt smaller, the walls closing in. She had 3 vampires staring daggers at her from one corner, and a legendary outcast werewolf walking in from the other. Her mission to observe had just become infinitely more complicated. Questions swirled in her mind, each one more urgent than the last. Why were the vampires here? What did they know? And what role did this exiled Wolf play in all of this? One thing was for sure: the vampires needed to be dealt with. But not with her claws. Not yet. First, she needed to know what they knew, to pry their secrets from them. And now she had another target for her intel gathering: the exile. His timing was too perfect, too suspicious. Time was running out. The fragile peace of the immortal world was shattering. And she was standing right at the epicenter of the quake. The night was far from over, and the heat was just getting started. It was going to be a long, long night. Stay tuned for more with Part 4 to see how Taylor handles the vampires in exile. What will she do first?